In the previous video, we talked about the ancestral environment, the trees, also known as the Garden of Eden. We then took a look at the impact that climate change had on our ancestors, resulting in the environmental change from trees to savannas and the subsequent need to adapt to a new environment. This we called the fall from Eden. Now we turn our attention to the most important part of our transformation from animal to human, from beast to man, from homo to sapien, and that is love. Not only does the infant represent the future of the hominid species, but it represents immense potential for change. It won't be the first hominid that climbs down from the trees that reaps the benefits of consciousness. It won't be the little girl who got kicked out of the Garden of Eden that will reap the benefits of religion. Ultimately, it will be their lineages. Let's back up again to 8 million years ago when our ancestors were still living in the trees, living comfortable lives in the trees. There were two extremely important relationships during this time: the relationship between various males, and of course, the relationship between the mother and the infant. The males spent large stretches of time out exploring and engaging in certain social behaviors, also probably engaging in some kind of primitive hunting. The females, on the other hand, cared for the children, and a special bond formed between them, and that is something that we call love. A massive stimulus for this development ultimately was the move from Eden, from the trees, down to the ground. After the fall, the environment became much more dangerous, resulting in more emphasis on the mother-child relationship. It was now extremely important and even necessary for the child to develop a relationship with its mother before it was even born. The children that survived the most had certain characteristics. Since they couldn't change physically, they instead changed psychologically. Babies were born knowing who their mother was, that their mother could be trusted, that their mother was all good and all powerful and all knowing. This is because ultimately, as an infant, as a baby, your life completely depended upon your trust and your relationship to your mother. Your mother was the only person guaranteed to be there for you, and you had to make sure you had an unbreakable bond between the two of you. Inside the expanding skull of this newborn baby lies the foundation of all major world religions. But before we get there, we have to explain the rise of the first spiritual orientation, animism. I'm going to start with a statement that's going to make sense at the end of this section. The statement is, spirituality is sexuality. Another way that this can be iterated is animism is eroticism. This new savanna environment that we're in, as I mentioned many times before, is extremely dangerous for our ancestors, and perhaps it's most dangerous for the children. Due to a new influx of protein into our diet and into our bodies, proto-hominids are seeing a massive increase in expansion in the size of their brains. However, this results in longer infancies, more child deaths at birth, and ultimately an increase in vulnerability for both the mother and the child. I see this investment in the human brain as like an all-in move. Unknowingly, our ancestors put all the resources into the brain, even though selective pressures were going the exact opposite direction. Selection wanted shorter infancies, smaller brains, and less vulnerability. But there's one thing in these ancient human societies that was stronger than all of these factors, all these pressures combined, and that's love. And proto-hominid women are the inventors of it. The males of this time are still hunting and gathering. They're running around doing kind of whatever they want, but ultimately every step they take away from the tribe, from the females, leads to more vulnerability for the child. As a result, the female of the species changes biologically, and the first significant change we see the gradual loss of estrus. The females are no longer going into heat, and the mating season gradually fades to nothing. You see, having a mating season in the first place is restrictive, and ultimately results in the males only really wanting to be around during a certain time of the year and for probably only a few weeks. By losing the mating season entirely, the proto-hominid females can get pregnant at any moment, resulting in the males needing to be around just in case somebody's ready for pregnancy. Just like that, the loss of estrus results in less male expeditions and less exploration for the males in the society. But again, it results in more protection for the child. So why not go further? Well, we absolutely do. Certain anatomical changes take place that are foundational to this new form of a human. There are three most notable changes, 2 for the female and 2 for the male. The first for the female is the breasts enlarge significantly and the vagina gradually slides forward. For males, the penis enlarges. Now our ancestors are not limited to certain canine positions during intercourse. Now instead they are able to look at each other and study one's face. This is vital for building a connection between these two mates. Now that they have the opportunity to see one another and study each other's face, they can remember whose child is theirs and who they need to provide for. Now this sounds like a fantastic plan. In many ways it is. It sets up one of the most stable institutions ever, the nuclear family, which is still around today. And obviously that nuclear family is built around the child. The mother now has secured protection for the one that she loves the most, even more than her spouse, even more than her mate. It's the child. The mother and child are the inventors of love, and now the mother has introduced that to the males of the species. Before, there wasn't a strong love connection between the males and the females, but now there is. And that connection ultimately came from a selective pressure towards infantile traits in the males. That's something that we'll get to in the next video. But let's continue to focus on this idea of animism and how it arises out of this change in the sexual relationship between the male and the female. So instead of a few days a month where the males have to show off what they've got, where the females have to show off what they got, and everybody has to compete and size each other up, this now has to happen every single day, at any moment, at every moment. This is because the mating season is now 24/7, and this ultimately results in a primitive version of consciousness, of self-consciousness, which is a mechanism simply for self-reproach. Because the mating season is 24/7 and we always have to be at our best in order to ensure that our genes get passed on to the next generation, we developed a mechanism that is constantly keeping us in line with social norms. Again, this mechanism is constantly monitoring our behavior to ensure it is socially acceptable for the ultimate purpose of reproduction. This is the primitive version of consciousness. So what we've just introduced into the world by changing this dynamic relationship of love between the male and the female is what Freud called arose. It's a kind of charge or motivation or energy that wasn't there previously. He called this libido. Now a female, for example, is not just another member of the tribe. No, she is your mate. She is your spouse. She's somebody that you have a responsibility to protect. She's much more meaningful now than just another animal that you live with. The males who also want to have sex with her are not just random members in your tribe, they are competition. Polygamy is slowly moving out the window. We're getting rid of it. It's now focusing entirely on a monogamous relationship and again, that nuclear family. But this extends much further than just the relationships in the tribe. The stick that you have sharpened so you can go kill game is no longer just a stick. It's something that you are going to use to provide for your family, to keep your spouse around, to ensure the success of future generations. The forest is no longer just a collection of trees. The savanna is no longer just tall grasses with random animals in it that you can eat. These are the bodies of nature that will provide for you and your family. Everything now takes on a new additional layer of meaning that didn't exist previously. Again, this explains the origins of our most fundamental orientation to the world. And this is, of course, animism. This simple revelation completely changes our understanding of animism. And animism is not just one thing. It gradually changes throughout time. It's not animism and then polytheism and then monotheism. The changes occur very gradually, and the beginning of animism is significantly different from the end of animism, leading into polytheism. So I will be releasing an entire video about animism in the future, so be sure to subscribe if you're interested. We've come a long ways, but ultimately there's a lot of questions that are still on the table. Why is it that we don't have hair on our bodies? Why did female breasts enlarge? When and why did we start writing? When and why did we start believing in singular gods? How come we can cooperate and work together so well? Why are we so interested in the universe? Why did we learn how to innovate? How did we learn how to be creative? All these questions and many more are going to be in future episodes. Now, while many of these questions can be attributed to cultural evolution, which we'll get into later, there are two major developments that really dictated the evolution of humans beyond this point. But that is for the next video. So be sure to like and subscribe if you want to watch it, and I will see you over there.